Hey everyone, welcome to the online program of Amrita Civil Service Academy. My name is Sibi Joy, and in this video we'll be having the weekly discussion of daily MCQs. So without any delays, we'll go into the video. The first question. Consider the following statements about the olive ridley turtles. They are the most abundant sea turtles inhabit only the cold waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This species is protected under the Schedule 1 in the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and they are best known for their mass nesting called as Aribara. Select the correct answer. Option A 1 only, option B 2 and 3 only, option C 1 and 3 only, and option D, which is all of the above. Now olive ridley turtles are very famous in India because they have it happens in the Odisha coast. So since it's a common phenomenon and it's happening over the years, it is frequently mentioned in the news consistently. So keeping that in mind, and nesting is done in India off the Odisha coast, we can look at the first statement. It says that this most abundant sea turtles inhabit only the cold waters. So that word only should be noted, and the cold waters. Indian Ocean has its cold areas, but olive ridleys nest near Odisha. So keeping that in mind, the first statement seems kind of wrong because cold waters does not exist near the coast of Odisha. So if you remove option 1, what is left is option B, 2 and 3. This species is protected under Schedule 1 in Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Yes. They're best known for their mass nesting called as Aribara. Yes. So keeping just that logic in mind, we can make a quantitative analysis upon the question. So we look at the answer. The answer is B. The explanation is the olive ridleys are the smallest and most abundant of all sea turtles found in the ocean, inhabiting warm waters of the Pacific, Atlantic and the Indian Oceans. Statement 2 is correct because it is listed as vulnerable in the IUCN Red List and the Appendix 1 in CITES and Schedule 1 in Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. They are best known for their unique mass nesting called as Aribara, and an Aribara is a mass nesting event when thousands of turtles come ashore at the same time to lay eggs on the same beach. So this is the explanation. Keep this in mind. There will be certain sentences which may sound very wrong if one has a general context of the question. So we'll go for the next question. Which of the following schemes is implemented by the Employee Provident Fund Organization or EPFO? Number 1, Employees Provident Fund Scheme. Second, Employees Pension Scheme. And third, Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme. Which of the above mentioned statements are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, and D, all of the above. So all of them have the word employees in them, and they are all linked towards the Employees Provident Fund. So based upon the general logic, you can go for either it's A 1 and 2 only or option D, all of the above, because the first and second are clearly related to the Provident Fund organization, whereas the third, you can have a sense of doubt. But as you learn through this process, you will understand that the EDLI or the Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme is also a part of the EPFO. So keeping that in mind, the correct answer is D. And the explanation is the Employees Provident Fund Organization EPFO is one of the world's largest social security organization in terms of clientele and the volume of financial transactions undertaken. So EPFO is under the administrative control of the Ministry of Labour and Employment. Please note that point. And of the Government of India, and it operates 3 schemes, which is the Employees Provident Fund Scheme of 1952, Pension Scheme 1995, and the Insurance Scheme 1976, or Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme EDLI. So keep that in mind. It comes under which ministry? Which is the Ministry of Labour and Employment. We'll go for the next question. In the context of National Green Tribunal NGT, consider the following statements. It was enacted under India's constitutional provision of Article 21. The chairman of the tribunal is required to be a serving or retired Chief Justice of a High Court or a judge of the Supreme Court of India. It is mandated to dispose the cases within 3 months of their respective appeals. Choose the correct answer. 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 1 and 3 only, all of the above. So NGT is a very important body, is a very important statutory body which was formed under the NGT Act. And considering the present emphasis the government has placed upon climate change and environmental protection, NGT acquires prominence and is very frequently there in the newspaper. So the basic functioning of NGT is something every aspirant should be aware of. So keeping that in mind, as you learn through the process, you will understand what is Article 21, which is related to a right to healthy environment, which is also a part of Article 21. We can say the first statement is also always correct. The second statement is also true because that is the minimum qualification placed for a NGT chairman. The third statement, it is mandated to dispose the cases within 3 months. No, it is actually 6 months. You will learn through it. So it's a bit of a difficult question, but just by looking at it, it is quite possible that you can again make a qualitative analysis of either it is option A 1 and 2 only or option D all of the above. So again, we've reduced two options, we've removed two options, and we've brought to two options alone, which is A and D. So there's a 50-50 chance of making it correct. Keep this in mind. The correct answer is A. The explanation of statement 1 is correct because it was enacted under India's constitutional provision of Article 21, which assures the citizens of India the right to a healthy environment. The statement 2 is also correct because the chairman of the tribunal is required to be a serving or retired Chief Justice of a High Court or a judge of the Supreme Court. The statement 3 is not correct because the NGT is mandated to dispose the cases within 6 months, not 3 months, 6 months of their respective appeals. We go for the next question. Which of the following are correctly matched? Places in news: Kunduz, Afghanistan; Homs, Iraq; Hodeidah, Iran. Choose the correct code. Option A, 1 only. Option B, 2 and 3 only. Option C, 1 and 3 only. And option D, all of the above. So it's a bit of a difficult question because unless one has a very clear idea of where these places are, it's going to be really difficult. But understand, these places were in the news recently. So if you had just gone through the newspapers of the last week, you would have understood that these places were featured prominently in that, and one must have an idea of why these places are present, where they are present, and why it came up in the news. So all three answers are correct. I believe the answer is D, or answer is A, because Kunduz is present in Afghanistan because there was a Taliban attack upon Kunduz and which was repelled by the government forces. So we need to be aware of where each country is present. Whereas Homs is present in pre-Islamic Syria, or Emiza, known as Emiza, and Al-Hudaydah or Hodeidah is the fourth largest city in Yemen, and it's the principal port on Red Sea for Yemen. So we'll go for the explanation. The answer is A, because Kunduz is a city in northern Afghanistan which serves as the capital of the Kunduz province. The statement 2 is not correct because Homs, known in pre-Islamic Syria as Emisa, is a city in western Syria and the capital of the Homs Governorate. The statement 3 is also not correct because Al-Hudaydah, also transliterated as Hodeidah, Hudaydah or Hodeidah, is the fourth largest city in Yemen, and it's the principal port of Yemen on the Red Sea. So there are incidents, there are reasons why these were present in the news. Identify them. Whenever you learn about your international relations, you see some places, make a note on where it is present, which country it is present, and where it is present, so that you can relate it with a visual map in your mind. Go for the next question. What is Awa Guaja, sometimes seen in news? Hunter-gatherer tribe of Arunachal Pradesh, textile expressive art product, indigenous group of Amazon rainforest, and Alzheimer inhibitor. It's a very difficult question because there are just 4 options and there is nothing to be eliminated. You either know it, go for it. If you have zero idea, you might have to leave it. So these kind of questions are the most difficult because you have like zero idea if you don't know what they're talking about. That is the reason why we must learn our current affairs properly, and we must try to make a correlation with what is happening in the newspaper and locate it on the map. So the correct answer is option C. They are an indigenous group in Brazil. So we'll go for the explanation. An indigenous group in Brazil that traditionally has no contact with the outside world is suffering a genocide because of illegal loggers' encroachment on their land, a rights group has said. The Awa Guaja is a hunter-gatherer tribe of around 400 people in the Amazon rainforest of Brazil. So we need to keep this in mind. These kinds of questions are really difficult, and we need to be very aware of what is this and how it is associated with which country, or what is the background behind this being in the news. These kinds of questions are tricky, so we must try to attend them at most because they all possess answers and they can increase your marks a lot. That is the idea, but always understand these questions are tricky and it is not an issue if you have to leave such kinds of question. We'll go for the next one. The Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme (PCGS) was launched by the government to address liquidity crisis in non-banking financial companies, address temporary asset liability mismatches of public sector banks, refinance the bankrupt MSMEs companies, and reduce banks' risk-weighted credit exposure. Highly technical question based upon the economy syllabus. So, Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme has been present in the newspaper for a few, for a recent amount of time. And this was given by the government. Since there's nothing to eliminate in this, I would like to say that this was given by the government to for the NBFCs, for the liquid safe NBFCs, to manage their credit and manage their assets. So just keep that in mind. We'll go for the explanation. There is nothing much to eliminate in this question. Just go for it directly. Government has the answer is A, and the government has operationalized the rupees 1 lakh crore partial credit guarantee scheme to address liquidity crisis in NBFCs or non-banking financial companies, and under the scheme public sector banks can purchase securities which has a minimum rating of AA or financially sound non-banking financial companies. The objective is to address temporary asset liability mismatches of otherwise solvent NBFCs, housing finance companies, without having to resort to distress sale of their assets to meet their commitments. So understand, partial credit guarantee scheme is related to NBFCs. Keep that in mind. That should be good enough. Next question. Consider the following statements about the Konark Sun Temple. It is a classic illustration of the Dravida style of temple architecture. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is also known as the Black Pagoda. Which of the above mentioned statements are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, D, all of the above. Now, Konark Sun Temple. It's a very famous monument of India. It's present in Odisha. And the first statement, it's a classic illustration of the Dravida style of temple architecture. Now, Dravidian style is focused more towards the southern part of India. One of the finest examples of Dravidian style of temple architecture is the Brihadishwara temple, which is present in Tanjavur. So, keeping that in mind, and you can say that Odisha's Konark Sun Temple is not necessarily Dravidian, does not follow the Dravidian style of temple architecture. So, you can eliminate that option. Remove the option 1. You are left with just one option, which is option B, 2 and 3. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it is also known as the Black Pagoda. Go for the explanation. The answer is B. The statement 1 is not correct because it is also called the Surya Devalaya. It is a classic illustration of the Odisha style of architecture or the Kalinga architecture. The statement 2 is correct. It was declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1984. And the statement 3 is correct because sailors once called the Sun Temple of Konark the Black Pagoda because it was supposed to draw ships into the shore and cause shipwrecks. So that is the reason why it was known as the Black Pagoda. So keep this in mind. You can use certain logic. You can identify the location and make a qualitative analysis upon that. Go for the next question. In context of Ayushman Bharat or Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana PMJAY, consider the following statements. Under the scheme, a health cover of rupees 5 lakhs per family per year is provided for primary, secondary and tertiary care hospitalization. And the second statement, Niti Aayog implements the scheme in alliance with state governments. The third statement, under the scheme, the beneficiary can avail treatment in any of the states that have implemented the scheme. Choose the correct code, 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 3 only, D, all of the above. Now, this scheme has been one of the flagship schemes of the government over the past term. So, keeping this in mind, a person who has been consistently reading the newspaper for over a period of months will understand that the first statement is wrong because it does not provide for primary healthcare specialization, but rather it focuses on secondary and tertiary. The primary healthcare is not focused in the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So that statement alone you can eliminate it. You will go remove option A 1 and 2 only and option D all of the above. What you are left is option B 2 only and option C 3 only. So either it is 2 or 3. Niti Aayog implements the scheme in alliance with state governments. Niti Aayog is a research think tank of the government. It came about as a replacement of the Planning Commission of India. Niti Aayog is not a government agency. It is a government agency, but it's primarily a research organization. It's a think tank. It formulates strategies for the government. So it does not have any implementation purposes. Keeping that in mind, Niti Aayog does not play a role in implementing the scheme. So rather it be some other ministry or some other specialized agency. So option 2 can also be eliminated. Go for option 3, which is 3 only. The answer is option C. The statement 1 is not correct because the Ayushman Bharat PMJAY is the largest healthcare assurance scheme in the world, which aims at providing a health cover of rupees 5 lakhs per family per year for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization for over 10.74 crores poor and vulnerable families. And the statement 2 is also not correct because it is the National Health Agency, which has been constituted as an autonomous entity under the Society Registration Act of 1860 for effective implementation of PMJAY in alliance with the state governments. Whereas the third statement is correct because PMJAY is portable, and which means the beneficiary can avail treatment in any of the states that have implemented this scheme. Okay, we'll go for the next question. In the context of Kudankulam Nuclear Power Project, KKNPP, consider the following statements. It is a joint venture between France and Nuclear Power Corporation of India, and it is located in Tamil Nadu. It is India's first nuclear plant that uses pressurized water reactor technology. Choose the correct code, 1 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, D, all of the above. The first statement, it is a joint venture between France and Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. Kudankulam power plant has been present in the news for a long time. It's one of India's latest nuclear reactors. There was a bit of a controversy over its installation in Tamil Nadu. So you can be sure that the second statement is correct because everybody knows it's present in Tamil Nadu. And based upon that, you can say that option A and option C is eliminated. So it's either B, 2 and 3 and D, all of the above. Keeping that in mind, automatically option 3 also becomes correct. It is India's first nuclear power plant that uses pressurized water reactor technology. So 2 and 3 are completely correct. Then the question comes is 1. This is a joint venture between France and NPCA. Nuclear atomic power, usually India's go-to partner is Russia, not France. But it is quite possible it could be France, but generally it is Russia. Keeping that logic in mind, it can't be France. So I would generally go towards option B, 2 and 3 only. We'll go for the explanation. Answer is B. Statement 1 is not correct because the KKNPP is a joint venture between Rosatom of Russia and the state-owned NPCA Limited. The statement 2 is correct because it is located in the Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. And the statement 3 is also correct because Kudankulam is India's first nuclear power plant to use imported PWR technology. That is the explanation. So if you have a general idea of who are India's allies and what is happening around us, and you have the knowledge of over the past few months, you'll be able to attend this answer quite easily. Now, in the initial stages, it may seem difficult because you do not have much of a background upon the subjects upon which you are learning. But as the months progress, you will understand what you are learning about and you will be able to make better guesses, better and more educated guesses, thus getting more and more answers right. Okay, so we'll go for the next question. The Oslo Accords, sometimes seen in news, are a series of agreements between Russia and Ukraine, China and Taiwan, Iran and USA, and Israel and Palestine. So this is a very important international agreement and this has been in the news frequently over the past few years, months. So again, it's not something one can make a guess, but the correct answer is Israel and Palestine. We'll just go for the explanation. Oslo Accords are a series of agreements between Israel and the Palestine signed in the 1990s, and Oslo 1 is formally known as the Declaration of Principles DOP. The pact established a timetable for the Middle East peace process. It planned for an interim Palestinian government in Gaza and Jericho in the West Bank. Oslo 2 is officially called the Israeli-Palestinian Interim Agreement on the West Bank and Gaza of 1995, expanded on Oslo 1. The question of Jerusalem was left undecided under the Oslo Accords. So Oslo Accords, keep in mind, it's a this is between Israel and Palestine. We'll go for the next question. Consider the following statements about the ecologically sensitive area ESA. In the ESA, all kinds of mining activities, thermal power plants, and highly polluting industries are restricted. Second statement, Dr. Kasturi Rangan Committee had recommended declaring entire Western Ghats as an ESA. Select the correct answer. 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, and D, none of the above. So, economically sensitive area, ecologically sensitive area, it is quite possible in such sensitive areas if mining and thermal power plants and polluting industries are placed, definitely it's going to create some problems. So, we can take the first option as right. Second option, Dr. Kasturi Rangan Committee had recommended declaring entire Western Ghats as an ESA. That word entire again puts a doubt inside the candidate's perspective. Again, considering the recent floods, these reports have been coming frequently in the news, and one thing has been clear, it is not the Dr. Kasturi Rangan report, rather it was the other report by Dr. Madhav Gadgil which has recommended declaring the entire Western Ghats as an ESA. So this has been in the news frequently. If one is more familiar with the news over a over a period of time, they would have definitely made this answer correct. So we'll go for the explanation. The answer is A. The statement 1 is correct because in the ESA, all kinds of mining activities, thermal power plants, and highly polluting industries are not allowed. Whereas the statement 2 is not correct because to conserve and protect the biodiversity of Western Ghats while allowing for sustainable and inclusive development of the region, the government had constituted a high-level working group under the chairmanship of Dr. Kasturi Rangan. And the committee had recommended 6 geographical areas falling in the 6 states of Kerala, Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu may be declared as ESA. Instead of the total area of Western Ghats, only 37% was to be brought under ESA under the Kasturi Rangan report. But it was the Madhav Gadgil Committee which recommended that the entire Western Ghats to be declared as ESA. If one is aware of the recent happenings in the news and the news with relation to Western Ghats, these two committees are really famous. And one can make an educated guess based upon that. So we'll go for the next question. Consider the following statements about the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana PMUI. Under the scheme, LPG connections are released in the name of an adult woman of the BPL family. and only BPL families identified according to the Socioeconomic Caste Census (SECC) are beneficiaries of PMUI. It has been implemented by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, and which of the above mentioned statements are correct? Option A 1 only, option B 2 and 3 only, option C 1 and 3 only, and option D all of the above. So one thing you have to look at is under the scheme, LPG connections are released in the name of an adult woman of the BPL family, quite possible. Second statement, only BPL families identified according to the SECC list are beneficiaries of PMUI. Not necessarily, there can be other beneficiaries too, and this word only is a trap for us. So just remove that, you remove option B, or you remove the second statement, you'll lose option B which has 2 in it and option D which has all of the above in it. So the only thing left is option A 1 only and option C 1 and 3 only. So option 1 is automatically has become correct. Option 3, it is implemented by the Ministry of Women and Child Development. LPG connections, Ministry of Women and Child Development, not necessarily. Especially LPG connections, there is another ministry which is involved in it, which is known as the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So it is not the Ministry of Women and Child Development which is involved in this scheme. So if you remove third statement also, the answer is option A 1 only. You go for the explanation. The answer is A, the statement 1 is correct because under the scheme the LPG connection is released in the name of an adult woman of the BPL family. But there is a condition that the family should not have an LPG connection already. The statement 2 is not correct because it covers all SC/ST households, beneficiaries of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Gramin, Antyodaya Anna Yojana, forest dwellers, most backward classes, T and XT garden tribes, people residing in islands and rivers in addition to SECC identified households. The statement 3 is not correct because it has been implemented by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, not the Ministry of Women and Child Development.